Good afternoon, and welcome to the South Orange County Economic Coalition's July General Membership Meeting. My name is Dwayne Cave, and I serve on the Board of Directors of the South Orange County Economic Coalition. I am also the External Relations Manager for San Diego Gas and Electric. Today, we're going to have some real talk about real estate. In our homes, we raise our families and build our lives. But thanks to the consistent rise in home value in South Orange County, for many of us, our homes have also become our biggest tangible investment we have. Today, we'll be speaking with our South Orange County real estate experts, both on the residential and commercial side. We'll also be joined by our South Orange County representative in the California State Assembly, Lori Davies, who will talk about what legislation is happening in Sacramento that could impact real estate, good and bad. I'd like to begin the program by thanking our sponsors of today's program, including our main program sponsor, the Orange County Association of Realtors. OCAR is the largest local realtor association in California, serving over 15,000 real estate professionals. OCAR has a mission to promote the Realtor Code of Ethics, to provide education, services, and resources to its members, and to advocate for the protection of real property rights. I'd like to also acknowledge our supporting sponsor of today's show, the Building Owners and Managers Association of Orange County. We're going to start our program this afternoon with a look at residential real estate. We have several members of the Orange County Association of Realtors leadership team joining us here today. We have OCAR President Lori Lamazzi, OCAR 2022 President-elect Scott White, OCAR Treasurer Joyce Endo, and OCAR's Risk Management Chair Lisa Dunn. Thank you all for taking the time to meet with us here today. President Lamazzi, may I call you Lori?
Yes, absolutely.
Why don't we start with you, and let me get your initial thoughts on real estate market we're in. It's reminding a lot of folk of what it was like before the last mortgage meltdown in 2008. Do we need to be nervous, or is it different this time around?
It's such a great question. Thank you for that. It's very different this time around. The events leading up to the mortgage meltdown in 2008 were all financial driven. We had borrowers who were pulling out equity from their homes and just buying a lot of stuff. So there was a lot of consumer debt, there was over construction, and yet this time around, we don't have those conditions. Yes, we had the pandemic, which was a medical emergency initially that turned into a financial emergency, but there are several things that are different today that will prevent that mortgage meltdown just like that. First being, there's no risky loans that are being offered today. The Dodd-Frank Act established guardrails to keep those bad lending practices from happening again. And so most buyers have better credit scores and larger down payments, and cash is really a norm in some of our offers. Second, we don't have a demand issue. We have an inventory shortage. So demand is actually relatively average, but the shortage of properties is what is driving the prices up. And then we have demographics. We have millennials and Gen Zs. These are the largest population groups, and they're hitting the primary age for getting married and raising families. And this is expected to happen over the next couple of years, to 2024, maybe a couple of years beyond that. But the inventory shortage hasn't changed, and that's making the problem really much more noticeable. And lastly, foreclosures from the COVID forbearance are unlikely to happen. Everyone is expecting, well, not everyone, a lot of people are expecting there's going to be this huge foreclosure market. And due to the increased equity in our homes, most people earn 24% equity on their home in the last 12 months or so. And so with that, only 13% of the borrowers who took the option of forbearance actually might have an issue. So when you look at those large numbers of people who took the forbearance and then scale that down based on the people who have been reemployed or they have equity in their home, it's actually a much smaller population that might be in trouble. And so for those reasons, this market is very different.
Well, thanks, Lori. Scott, you grew up here in Orange County. You have two boys. Do you worry about the next generation of Orange County residents if they're getting priced out of the housing market? Is there still a pathway to home ownership for the next generation?
I'm going to answer that as a yes and a no right now, and I'll get into details. Obviously, my question is a lot more specific than Lori, so I'll talk more personally. My boys are both the tail end of the millennials, although my youngest identifies more with the Gen Z crowd. So I kind of have this overlap here. They're both very professional. One's a firefighter, paramedic, and one's an engineer. So they have very lucrative careers, and yet it can still be tough. I don't think there's such thing as affordable housing in Orange County, no matter where you go here. So my oldest is a firefighter in Oregon. He's managed to buy a very nice home up in Southern Oregon that would probably cost close to $1 million down here for a third of the price. Whereas my youngest son and his wife right now are trying to buy a home today. And they're looking at numbers that are mind-boggling to me. When I bought my house 25 years ago, it was a tiny fraction of what they're looking at now, and they're just in their mid-20s. So I think that right now, the saving grace for the young families trying to start out here is today's interest rates. That's what's giving the affordability to the people that are stuck with $1 million homes all over Orange County. I think once the rates climb, which are inevitable, I think we're going to see a whole different picture. I think we're going to see the Gen Zs and the millennials being shut out of this market, and it's going to be really sad to see. Now, conversely, I think Prop 19, we're hoping, should allow people to move out of their homes, take their Prop 13 tax base with them, and not have to pay more after they're retired. So that may free up a little bit more housing for the young crowd here, because right now it's a supply issue. We have plenty of demand, but not enough supply.
Yeah, definitely be nice to see a little bit more supply out on the market right now. So Joyce, let me ask you a little bit about OCAR. The Orange County Association of Realtors is so much more than a professional affiliation group. You have classes, you advocate on behalf of homeowners and property rights issues. You have a code of ethics that's the foundation of your organization. Tell me a little bit about OCAR and why this organization is important to you and your fellow OCAR members.
Thank you, Dwayne. That's a very good question. Orange County Realtors also offers volunteer community outreach and networking opportunities for our members. Leadership skills are added possibilities for the members who seek to advance at Orange County Realtors and the community to become leaders. This association is important to me for all these reasons, along with the distinguished presenters, industry leaders, and community leaders I've had the honor to meet since my licensure in 2005 and joining OC Realtors. Currently, we have over 15,000 members, and we rank #1 in California and the 12th in the nation for membership. So we do have quite a voice and offer a lot for our members. I'd like to share an amazing statistic though about our educational offerings. You mentioned classes, and this is during 2020, right with the pandemic. It's pretty eye-opener. We had 585 classes with over 6,200 attendees. We had 104 webinars, forums, events with over 8,400 attendees. And we still did outreach training, either one-on-one or in group via Zoom. And that was with over 2,700 attendees. So that's a total of 17,500 attendees, be it real estate professionals, our members, our surrounding areas, and even our community partners joined us for all these educational offerings. Also, as far as advocacy, which you mentioned, there are a few and a select group of realtors. We travel 5 times a year to advocate for homeownership and property rights. We have meetings with other realtors in California, with the California Association of Realtors. And we also meet with other realtors throughout the United States with the National Association of Realtors. And the highlight of these meetings are that we are able to meet with our legislators and our members of Congress. So to close, you mentioned our Code of Ethics. Yes, our Code of Ethics was adopted in 1913. There are 17 articles, and there are also standards of practice that go along with those. And the reason why this was adopted is so that realtors will cooperate with each other in the best interest of their clients. Thank you, Dwayne, for asking me to share some highlights of Orange County Realtors.
Well, thank you, Joyce. And it's amazing what OCAR was doing during the pandemic and during very trying times. That's pretty big numbers of people being trained and being involved. Well, with us today is also Lisa Dunn. And Lisa, what's the market like out there right now? We hear rumors and we see news reports that people are moving out of California. But you know, if that was true, shouldn't the prices of homes be going down? Why isn't that so?
Well, first off, thank you for having me today. I really appreciate being here. And, you know, that is a fantastic question, Dwayne. You know, that's one of the many myths out there regarding the real estate market. You know, this is, you know, one that is perpetuated a lot. And there are a lot of people that are moving to other markets around the country. You know, the Dallas suburbs, we have the Boise suburbs, and, you know, a few are still going to Las Vegas and Tennessee and Arizona. But the number isn't as big as people think it is. It's just, you know, it's a small group, but they happen to be a very noisy and vocal group and let you know that they're leaving and why they're leaving. But if you're moving to one of those areas, you better like people from California, because one of my friend's sons just moved into a home in a Boise suburb, and he's meeting his neighbors and it's like, hey, I'm from Oceanside. And they're like, hey, I'm from Irvine. I'm from Rancho Santa Margarita. I'm from Irvine. So he's on a street with people from California. So, you know, that is all well and good. But for every person that leaves, we still are seeing multiple people trying to buy the properties that when these people leave, because we have this inventory issue. One thing that we fail to see, especially in Orange County, is our incomes are pretty high. So we can afford these prices. You know, most of the people that are in this area are, you know, doing relatively well if they're considering buying homes. So, you know, for every person that leaves, we'll have a couple of people wanting to buy their property. So that's why we're not seeing any sort of drop in prices, because we have had demand for quite some time. It's, you know, we're seeing a little bit more of a raise in inventory right now, and we may be seeing maybe a little slowing in the increase of prices. But overall, Orange County is still a very desirable place to live. And one other thing too, we have Proposition 13 in California. We know what our property taxes are going to be every year. If you're moving to a state like Texas, you know, maybe they don't have income tax, but the property tax, which is reassessed annually, can be upwards of 3% a year. So you start looking at, you know, what happens to the homeowners there. You know, it sounds great, but there's no free lunch. You're still going to pay somewhere.
Well, thank you, Lisa. That makes perfect sense to me. At this time, let's go to one of the questions we received from the public.
My name is Sherry Butterfield. My question today is, how did COVID change the way you sell homes, and which ones of these changes do you see as possibly being permanent?
Great question, Sherry. Let's put that one to Lisa Dunn.
Well, we had to change a lot of our business practices during COVID. And one of the things that we did, which I wish would stick around, but I'm afraid it won't, is we would have to have our buyers all pre-qualified before we could show them homes. Many of the listings were saying, before you set an appointment, we need to see that the buyer is a qualified buyer. And we had forms, which we lovingly called PED forms, which were basically kind of contact tracing and people, you know, saying that they didn't have COVID before they walked into a home. We would have to have a form submitted to a listing agent every time we were going to show a property. So there was two things that came of that were good. Number one, we had a record of everybody that was in properties. So not only for the event that we needed to do contact tracing, we also had our buyer registered seeing that house. So there was no question as to who was the agent that introduce the property to them. And the other thing was being sure that all of the buyers were pre-qualified. You know, especially at a time like this, you don't want just people wandering through your home. And, you know, if you are serious about buying, then you've already talked to the lender, you've already shown how you're going to pay for this. Welcome to the property. If you can't, then maybe we're not going to let you in. That's something I'd like to see us continue to do.
Okay, well, thank you, Lisa. Another question we have is no question that California has unique laws when it comes to real estate. You know, Prop 13 comes to mind, as we mentioned earlier, as one of the few California initiatives or laws that have been a godsend to Californians. Are there any current laws or upcoming bills that are particularly harmful or helpful to the residential homeowners? Anyone like to answer that one?
Sure, I'd be happy to expound on that a little bit.
Please, go ahead.
Okay, all right, so Scott mentioned a little bit about Prop 19, and there's actually two sides to that proposition. He mentioned the side about helping with the property tax transfer, and that 55 or older, disabled, and people affected by natural disasters are now able to transfer their property tax. And that is their base up to $1 million. The other side to that is that it's also affecting the intergenerational transfer of wealth. It was February 19th is when this became enacted in this year of 2021. And so now the heirs, the children, the grandparents with their grandchildren, as long as the heirs are planning to live in the property, then the tax base will continue. However, especially with second homes and investment properties, if the families are going to keep them as second homes or investment properties, then these homes will now be reassessed. So that's a change in the intergenerational transfer that occurred with the passing of Proposition 19.
Well, thank you, Joyce. Let's do a little bit of a speed round right now where each of you answer the same question. So we're going to start out with Lori. So Lori, what is the best aspect of the real estate market right now?
Well, my answer to that is twofold: technology and education. This market is so fast that agents really need to up their game with their technology skills and with their education as well, so that they can provide the best service to their clients who have so much access online themselves. We have to be a few steps ahead of them. So that's my answer.
Scott, you're next.
Well, I think I touched on it already also with the interest rates. We have something to take advantage of right now, and I think that's created this high demand. But people are able to get homes under 3% still for their 30-year mortgages. So that will continue to feed the market and keep us busy for a long time to come until the rates change.
Joyce?
Right now, I see the best aspect is having another option for sellers with the open houses. They don't necessarily have to have the open houses the way that they were used to, having the realtors hold open houses to allow prospective buyers in. We've gotten very creative over this last year to be able to showcase the properties in a very nice way for the sellers. So I think that's the best aspect right now.
Very good. And Lisa?
I would say probably the guardrails that are in place that Lori touched on. So even in this possibly overheated and possibly unhealthy market, you know, it's unhealthy due to an inventory issue. And we have guardrails in place so people aren't going to be making that mistakes that they did make in the recession period back in 2008.
Very good. One more speed round we have here. And if you had to guess, where's the residential real estate market headed over the next year? Will it favor the sellers or the buyers, or will the higher interest rates make it tough for it? Let's go with Lori.
Well, gosh, don't we all wish we had the crystal ball? You know, that's such a tough question. My hope is that we find more balance with this market. We've got a great market, but it's just so competitive right now. It's making it very difficult for the buyers, and it's very stressful for the sellers. So my hope, interest rates will stay low enough so our younger generations can get in, you know, at very reasonable rates, and yet I hope that it's balanced where we don't see this artificial inflation just due to this crazy demand we have right now.
Okay, Scott.
I think that right now we are in such a strong strong sellers market that when the rates do increase, which is inevitable, I think that we're going to shift to an average sellers market to a balanced market. Going to a buyer's market just doesn't fit with some of the economists that are looking at this right now. So for the foreseeable future, I think that it's going to be tough for buyers, but hopefully not as tough.
Joyce?
Because there are more options for sellers right now, I think they will be now feeling a little more comfortable to place their home on the market. So I think we will have a little increase in inventory, which will help with all the buyers that we have that are in a buying frenzy, just putting offer after offer, because the interest rates, I believe, are still going to be pretty competitive and stay reasonable around where they are. So I think there'll be more homes on the market, but I think which will kind of help with the frenzy a little bit.
Lori, Scott, Joyce, and Lisa, thank you so much for joining us here today and getting our viewers up to speed on the residential real estate market. We're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. When we get back, we'll be joined by Ellen Tickner with the Building Owners and Managers Association. We'll talk about commercial real estate. So please stay with us.
Orange County Realtors really works hard to provide a wide variety of training, from learning how to work with buyers, learning how to work with sellers, learning how to negotiate, learning how to run an ethical business.
So I could be at any board of realtors, but I want to be somewhere that helps my business grow. And they look for that. They look to provide the resources, the affiliates, the training.
Education is the key to being a successful realtor.
While there are many associations that one may consider, there are none that offer as many services and benefits to its members than the Orange County Realtors. It's a great group. It's the only one you want to be a part of.
Well, welcome back to the show, everyone. We just got the rundown on the residential real estate market, and now it's time to move on to what's really important to business and economic development, commercial real estate. And it's a very critical component. So joining me today is Ellen Tickner. Ellen is from the Building Owners and Managers Association of Orange County, otherwise known as BOMA, OC. Ellen, thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me.
So we heard about the residential real estate side, and things are really booming. Home prices have never been higher than what we see today. So what's the commercial side like?
Well, it's a complex question. COVID has certainly taken a toll on business in general, as everyone knows. As far as leasing, however, interestingly enough, it's actually going really well, especially in the industrial and the office components. Retail is struggling a little bit more, obviously, because of the impact on restaurants. But the leasing market right now is very strong. I don't know how long that will last, but for the time being, it's a pretty strong market out there.
Okay. And you talked about COVID a little bit. It seems like COVID has had an outsized impact on commercial property. Some businesses are wondering if they can't save money by shrinking in their footprint, you know, having less office space. How has COVID affected the commercial side of real estate, and what are some of the long-term impacts that we might see?
Yeah, that's a tough one. There was a time when many businesses said we could never work remotely. Never going to happen, not in our industry, not even an option. There's nothing like a worldwide pandemic to make people get a little bit more creative. During the pandemic, people had no choice. It was find a way to survive and keep your business afloat. So there's an awful lot of businesses that didn't think they could work remotely, that when push came to shove, in fact, they did work remotely. And it's worked, and businesses have stayed afloat. So now you have kind of an awkward situation. You have employees who have been working at home, and frankly, a lot of them like it. They like that fringe benefit. You also have employers who want people to come back to the workplace. So there's a rub there. The way I look at it, there's many businesses where the synergy created in a work environment, the teamwork, running ideas off of each other, running in and out of each other's offices, sitting there in a conference room with donuts and coffee and shooting the whatever, gets people really creative, and that synergy is really critical. And then you have the employee satisfaction side of the component, which is, for instance, with single moms, working home is huge. For everyone, they're not spending the time on a commute, the wear and tear on their car, their wardrobe. There's a lot of flexibility in having that work at home option. So how is that going to translate as businesses reopen? We don't know. But I think you're going to see a lot of creativity. I think you're going to have employers who are going to try to balance the work-life choices and maybe have sort of a hybrid situation. You know, do you come to the office Monday, Wednesday, Friday, work remotely Tuesday, Thursday? Do you have a 4-day work week? It's going to be really interesting to see how it unfolds. What I do know is that if a lot of the businesses do allow people to work remotely, when lease renewals come up, there is going to be downsizing, and that's going to put more pressure on that office environment.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a lot of changes when it comes to how the workforce is handling things today with the pandemic, and I think we're going to see a lot of changes as we move forward, and the hybrid is probably the big thing that we're going to see. So at this time, why don't you tell me a little bit about BOMA OC? You were formed in 1983 in order to have a more unified voice for advocacy within the commercial real estate market, correct?
Yes. BOMA OC and the entire BOMA organization provides an invaluable set of resources for information for the commercial sector, especially the office sector, but all commercial sectors. They have seminars, they have articles, they have classes that can be taken. They have just a phenomenal set of resources available to the commercial owner and the commercial property manager. It's really pretty amazing. And then, of course, there's the networking. You have a ton of owners and managers that get together, and then vendors that support those managers. And, you know, we have a heck of a lot of fun, but we also learn a lot. In fact, we have a fabulous event coming up. It's a wine tasting event, September 16th at the Met in Costa Mesa. We call it Sip, Support, and Socialize. A lot of fun. There will be a good 400 people there. We'll have different assembly people and local politicians. It's an opportunity to hear what they have to say, to ask them the tough questions, try to get them to see your viewpoint. A lot of fun, really good opportunity, and would love to have you join us.
Well, very good. And you know, right now I think you invited everybody to your event, so hopefully it'll be a great event. So Ellen, commercial landlords have had to navigate the eviction moratorium that's in California. So that's been going on for about 2 years now. What's going to happen when that ends? How are the commercial landlords going to be able to deal with this?
Yeah, it's been really tough out there for commercial landlords. There have been a series of moratoriums. There's actually not a statewide moratorium in effect for commercial property. There is for residential. For commercial property, what Governor Newsom did is he gave the local jurisdictions permission to enact moratoriums or keep moratoriums in place if they felt it appropriate or necessary to do so. So it's really on a city-by-city basis. For instance, in the city that you're in Orange County, there is no moratorium, but in Santa Ana there is. It really is a city-by-city basis, and in some cases, for instance, the County of Los Angeles has a very, very severe and strict moratorium in place. So I guess contrary to what a lot of people think, commercial landlords want their tenants to succeed. And during this long period where there have been a variety of moratoriums in place, commercial landlords, at least the ones that I know, have worked very, very hard to support their tenants and help them save their businesses. I mean, if there is, we're in commercial real estate law, if there is a deferral agreement, abatement agreement, workout agreement, if you can think it, we've written it probably 10 or 15, 25 times. And a lot of commercial landlords have kept a lot of their tenants in business by working with them during this period. But there are those businesses who have done nothing wrong, but just by the nature of their particular industry, literally have not been able to pay rent. And you have tenants who have not paid for 6, 12 or more months. When eventually these various cities lift those moratoriums, it's time to pay the piper. And I honestly do not know if some of these commercial tenants have any way of ever making up that back money. So I think what's going to happen eventually is there is going to be a series of business lockouts, and you're going to end up with a lot more product on the market. And that goes back to your initial question when we started this with leasing and how is commercial real estate doing. Right now, I think it's quite stable. But when you end up with a lot more product on the market, now you've got the issue of supply and demand, and we all know what happens when you have too much supply and not enough demand. You know, the market goes down. So it's going to be really tough, I think, the end of 2021, beginning of 2022. I think we're going to see some changes in the economy based on more product coming back on the market.
That's a great answer. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here in really a matter of months. Well, thanks, Ellen. We now have a question from the audience. So okay. It's from Ruben. So Ruben, what's your question?
Hi, my name is Ruben Rivas, Senior Property Manager for the Irvine Company. Last year, California voters wisely voted down Prop 15, which seemed to be the state's first volley in an effort to dismantle Prop 13 tax protections on real estate. Can you talk about what kind of impact Prop 15 would have had on the commercial real estate industry and what we can do to make sure nothing like this comes back?
Great question, Ruben. You know, Prop 13 is one of the few protections that California has at this time for its taxpayers. We're going to have Assembly Member Lori Davies here shortly, and she'll have a chat about this too, because, you know, Prop 13 is extremely important. But tell me about BOMA's role in the defeat of Prop 15 last year.
BOMA is very, very involved in governmental affairs and everything that goes on in Sacramento. We have a very big presence as far as worker bees and also financial contributions. So when Prop 15 was on the ballot, we really wanted to establish a grassroots effort, and we did weekly articles that went out on our news media, News Bites, letting people know what Prop 15 was about, how it impacted Prop 13, that kind of thing. We sent out blasts every week on social media. We provided our membership with a roster of the email addresses for all of the assembly people so they could reach out and talk about that. And we worked very closely with our lobbyist in Sacramento, Rex Heim of the California Business Properties Association. We did, in fact, get Prop 15 defeated. It was a narrow margin. But I caution people, it's not over. This is something that's going to come up every election. They're going to continue to try to chip away at Prop 13. So we need to be proactive and ready to roll at any moment. I know the next election, they'll call it something else, 22, 15, 36, whatever you want to call it. There will be another attack on Prop 13 this next election.
Well, I think you're definitely ready because you were even featured in OC Tax's Save California last year, the program that ran ahead of the election.
Yeah, a lot of us jumped on board with that. We just wanted voters to understand the necessity for Prop 13 and how it protects all of us and make sure that we defend that and keep it in place.
Oh, very good. Well, Ellen, any final words about commercial real estate here in Orange County?
We live in a fabulous area. Our real estate is beautiful. We have great weather. We have wonderful organizations that support us. You know, we're very fortunate people, and we need to make sure that we protect that.
Well, very good. Well, thank you very much for being here, Ellen. And we're going to take one more final break. And when you come back, we will have California Assembly Member Lori Davies here with us to talk about what's going on in California and what she's doing to help make sure we're going in the right direction. Stay with us.
The South Orange County Economic Coalition is the leading business organization throughout the region. We've been the voice of businesses in South Orange County for more than 50 years, and we work diligently to promote a strong economic climate and provide updates on important issues discussed at the state, regional, and local levels. Our members include key community stakeholders, businesses large and small, as well as public agencies, all committed to building a strong business climate both regionally and within our local communities. We advocate for our businesses and members by taking positions on legislation and local initiatives that have a direct impact on our communities. We hold monthly membership meetings, meet and greet events with our federal, state, and local legislators, and provide an annual economic report for South Orange County. Educate, facilitate, advocate. We're the South Orange County Economic Coalition. Learn more at economiccoalition.com.
I'd like to welcome everyone back to Real Talk on Real Estate. One of the biggest influencers on real estate in California, good or bad, is our state government. Laws that come out of Sacramento have outsized and greatly impacted the real estate market. Joining me today is our State Assembly Member, Lori Davies. Assemblymember Davies, thank you very much for being here today.
Dwayne, it's great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
You know, you were elected last November. Here you are. You did a great job in Laguna Niguel, and now you're up at the state capitol. But it's a little different this time because now you're in the minority. So tell me, what's it like going up to Sacramento, working with the legislature, and how do you get things done?
First of all, I can tell you I'm having a great time. I really am. And when I campaigned, I really said, listen, I'm going to go up there to make good policy and to stop bad policy. And that means walking across the line and working with people. So the first thing I did was start building relationships with everyone and, and building trust, and then putting together great policy where I was having Democrats come on and co-author bills of mine. And they had great bills that were, beneficial for not only our district, but the state. And so I was able to co-author there, showing that we're working together on good policy. But we're also working together on shutting bad policy down. And this year we were able to shut down 5 major bills that really have been devastating to small businesses, as well as taxes on all Californians. So we're moving forward, and I'm excited about that. I think it's one of the first times, from what I'm hearing, is that we're able to work with those that a little bit more moderate up there on common sense policy.
Well, very good. Well, I know we're all very happy that you're up there with a strong voice advocating for good policy. So thank you very much for doing that. So let's take a look in the rearview mirror at this time, and let's look back at 2020 on one of the most dangerous initiatives that came out. It was Prop 15. This was an effort to unwind Prop 13, which is so important to all of us, by eliminating the taxpayer protections on commercial real estate. Well, thankfully, the voters saw through this and voted the proposition down. I know you're opposed to Prop 15. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I'd be happy to. And I think when I was campaigning for Assembly, what I did is I took the time to make sure that people are being educated on all these propositions, and especially Prop 15, which would be devastating to to our communities, our small businesses. And you know, I don't think people realize that what that was going to do, better known as the split road tax, that was going to split Prop 13 and take commercial property and industrial property and go ahead and start having them pay property taxes on what the value of the property is as today, not when they purchased it. And there's no way that they would be able to afford that. It could be 10 times the amount of property tax that they've been paying. And especially during 2020 and COVID, what that would do is just take, for instance, a grocery store. Whoever owns that property, they're obviously not going to be able to pay that, so they're going to put it down onto whoever's leasing that, say Ralph's grocery store. Well, then Ralph's is going to have to put it to the consumer. Now, that would probably work, and you're looking at inflation going on right now. But look at the small person that has, say, the nail salon. There's no way they would be able to increase the price what they're charging right now. So you would watch businesses go under right and left, and we've already have devastated a lot of businesses. So it was so important, and I really believe that if this would have gone through, our residential property would be next. 2022, you would see it on the ballot that our taxes should be going up. They love to say, oh, it's time for the corporations to pay their fair share. But the bottom line is everyone's paying their taxes, and this would do nothing but to shut businesses down. So you know what? They'll try it again, I'm sure, but at least we're able to show them that we're educated people, knew what this was this time, no matter how they're going to market it. And so we'll be back there fighting if they try it again.
Very good. And I think we're going to have to double down our efforts next time because they will be back.
Absolutely.
So we know that there are a lot of legislative efforts in Sacramento to try to level the playing field when it comes to accessibility of housing by passing more and more laws. Another way to address housing availability is to allow construction of housing where it is appropriate, and as supply catches up with demand, prices will stabilize. What's your take on the best way to ensure housing affordability by Californians and for Californians?
Obviously, there's a housing issue right now, but what we need to do is we have to have common sense development. And one size doesn't fit all. And this is the problem with the legislation that they're passing up there. What's good for San Francisco isn't good for our district or other districts. Let us do it the way we want to do it. But going ahead and put high density into single family homes doesn't work. Not to mention, when they go ahead and they pass this type of housing, they don't look at where the money's going to come when it comes to infrastructure. Who's going to be paying for the additional roads? Who's going to be paying for law enforcement? Who's going to be paying for additional schools? They don't even look at that, but you know it's going to come onto the taxpayers, and the only way we're going to be able to do that would be to increase local taxes, which I'm completely against, and I know that most of the cities are as well. But I think what we need to do is always look back when there wasn't a housing crisis, and then follow the road into where it became that. What it was, additional fees. CEQA, it takes forever to get something passed. The cost of building materials, it's 300 times more to build a house here than it is in other states. Why is that? Again, regulations, regulations, regulations. If you went back and undid a lot of these fees and regulations, I will guarantee you would see development happening and happening quick and making it affordable. But as long as they keep putting more fees and restrictions and regulations on builders, the cost is going to go up. So that's really what the problem is. It's just they don't want to look at it and realize they created that problem. And I think if you look at a lot of crises in the state, these problems were created by legislation.
Yeah. Well, we're very happy that you're in Sacramento keeping an eye on us, you and your staff. I know you're extremely busy. So what are some of the key bills that you're looking on that affect real estate?
Great. I would think number one, SB 9, and that's something that we've really been trying to educate the residents, not just in our district, but of California. And what that will do is that will allow a single-family unit to split their lot. So you could have, perhaps your neighbor has a single-family unit right next to you. They could split that lot, and they could actually build 2 units on each half, which means you could have 4 units sitting on one lot, and you know how many people they're going to put in there. Also with that, it allows that they don't have to go through planning. It actually takes all local control away from planning and zoning on that. And they only ask for 1 parking spot per unit. We already know that most of our cities have a problem with parking just because of the amount of people that are now living in apartments. It's not the 2-car, 2-person. A lot of times with the cost of living, it could be 6 members with 6 cars, but that's also for the single family home as well. They've got kids now that are back home, and they've got their cars in there due to inflation and unaffordable apartments for them to live in. So it's that SB 9 would be devastating. You would watch your community completely be destroyed. It won't look like anything that you moved into 10 years ago. And we've got to stop that. It's already gone through the Senate. It's coming to the Assembly. We're trying to get people out there to call, educate them, because if this goes through, I think this will probably be the worst law that will affect all Californians. Again, common sense development. This may work in high density, large cities, but it doesn't work in suburban areas. We have other ways of doing it. Let us decide how we want to go ahead and build out, not how one person decides or legislation does.
Yeah. Well, and let's move over to the budget just a little bit here. The state has more than $260 billion that they brought in this year. Tens of billions of that is now surplus. With that, what do you do with the tax revenue?
Well, I can tell you that I know that they consider it a surplus, but to me, it's really not surplus. This money, to me, should go back to the taxpayers. If there's a surplus, it should go back to those that paid it. And one thing I did do is try to set an amendment with the budget this year, which would go ahead and give a gas tax holiday. We already know that people were hurting in regards to income and loss of job. We also know that the gas tax increases, especially when summer comes around. So on that floor, we went ahead and we made that amendment. They did table it. And I'm thinking, this is a taxpayer's dollar. Why not help them? Many other states actually did a tax holiday on gas. But again, ours didn't. And we have probably the highest gas prices right now, which will detrimentally affect all Californians. So I think that's something that should have been done. Also, we need to take that money and we need to put it towards infrastructure. Right now, I believe we have 26,000 freeways and highways that could have been paved with that surplus. Also, we need to be putting that money towards bridges and dams that still have not been fixed, that really issue with all Americans or all Californians. And also, I would like to see programs such as mental health. They did put money aside, but after COVID, it certainly wasn't enough. Mental health is going to be an issue due to COVID for years to come. And I'd also like to see money go into programs that basically were kind of put aside during COVID. What they did is, with this surplus, they went ahead and they basically started almost 400 new programs. What's going to happen next year when that surplus isn't there and they're going to be going, well, how are we supposed to fund these 400 programs? There were so many programs that were neglected this year that the money should have gone back to help. Not to mention, again, when they say there's a surplus, we have unfunded liability, which is huge. That's where a majority of the money should have gone. You know, if someone said to you, hey, you know what, we're going to give you an additional $5,000, most likely you're not going to go and take a trip if you owe. You know, you're going to put it to pay your car off, or you're going to help pay your mortgage off. You're going to put it to things that need to be taken care of. But they're looking as this is as free money. And as our governor was doing, you know, I give you $1 million, you $1 million. And you know what? We need to put it and give it back to the taxpayers, let them utilize it, as well as make sure that we're putting the money to these programs that we've had funded in the past and not starting more that won't be able to be funded next year.
Well, definitely you can see that prioritizing where that surplus goes is extremely important. So again, thank you for looking out for it and being, again, a voice for reason in Sacramento. So Lori, as we close out our program today, what are some of the priorities that you have for South Orange County?
Certainly. When I ran, you know, public safety was #1. And as a business owner, small businesses and making sure that they're protected and that we can stop as many bad laws that are going to affect, you know, and put them out of business. And a lot of them are moving out. So I was really happy that I have 6 bills that went, you know, to the floor. And I've got 2 that actually were signed by the governor. One of them was a public safety bill, and what that was, it was a privacy. Right now, if you're a victim or a witness, the defendant can actually, of a crime, the defendant can actually get your Social Security, your driver's license information, your email address. So there's no safety to protect the victim or the witness. What this would do is say that they weren't allowed to have it, and the defendant would have to prove to a judge why it was pertinent for the case that they're doing. So that was just signed by the governor. I have 4 other bills. One, again, I was very active when it came to working with families that have lost children and teens to overdoses of opioids. And what this would provide is Narcan. Right now, Narcan basically can reverse the effects of overdoses of heroin, fentanyl. And what this would make is the treatment centers, and there's a lot of great treatment centers, but it would make it mandatory that they would have 2 doses there at all times with someone that could administer it 24/7. So that I'm hoping will go through. So we've got some great bills that are going through. I've got an HOA bill. SB 9 will be devastating to HOAs. HOAs have a legal binding contract with the homeowner. What this will create is major litigation, and with litigation comes costs, which is going to go right down to the homeowner. And by increasing litigation and costs, basically it's going to create unaffordability when it comes to homes.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Assemblymember Davies. We're so happy that you're up in Sacramento, and even more, we're so happy that you're here today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, that wraps up another South Orange County Economic Coalition virtual membership meeting. Thank you very much for joining us here today for some real talk on real estate in South Orange County. I'd like to thank Darissy Doan from the Orange County Association of Realtors for helping on today's program. I'd also like to thank our speakers, Scott White, Lori Namazi, Lisa Dunn, and Joyce Endo, all from OCAR. Also, a big thank you to Ellen Tickner of BOMA OC. And of course, our state representative, Lori Davies. And today's event could not have happened without the generous support of our outstanding sponsors. Our main program sponsor is the Orange County Association of Realtors, and our supporting sponsor is the Building Owners and Managers Association, Orange County Chapter. A big thank you to the talented team at Communications Lab who has done all the great behind-the-scenes work to make this show possible. And of course, I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in to today's show. And if you want to keep up with what's going on in South Orange County, please go to our website at economiccoalition.com. And if you're interested in becoming a member, please click on the membership link. Thank you very much for being here today, and we'll see all of you very soon.